the tally is 23 for Jokic, 5 for Luka, 4 for Giannis and Booker, 3 for Tatum, and 1 for Embiid. So he just, I know we got lit up in the comments when me in particular, when I was shouting out all the advanced stats and stats aren't everything, and you can't rely on this. But when we're talking about players that are of this caliber, you have to have ways, including the eye test and including what you're seeing on a day-to-day basis, a game-to-game basis, to quantify how great they are. And using these stats, they really show that Jokic has the edge in these categories.
Let me put you on game.
Talk about award picks. Let's dive into what our picks are for the awards. We already have a defensive player of the year in Marcus Smart, which is really odd how early they announced that, considering it's like the second biggest award. Yeah. And I thought they're doing an award show, but I don't know if they're doing that anymore, virtually or not. I guess I don't know how the award system is working this year. But let's fire through the rest of them, and we can give who we thought should have won if we disagreed about defensive player of the year. Who do you have for coach of the year this year, and why?
Coach of the year, Taylor Jenkins. I mean, you led a playing team last year to a 2 seed in the West while going 20-5 without their superstar in the lineup. I feel like this award is similar to most improved player in the fact that it's likely gets awarded to the coach that has the best team record turnaround from season to season. Sometimes it goes to, a guy like Steve Kerr, or someone else or it might go to another type, a different coach, just for having an individually brilliant season. But most of the time, it's kind of like who's made the biggest jump. And I think Taylor Jenkins is that coach. I mean, their culture, the way that Memphis has been playing, the fact that they had such a great regular season record, and the based on the expectations of the team, like you were wondering, is this Ja Morant situation gonna be like a superstar waiting for the pieces to kind of flow around him, like a Dallas or like other superstars in the past? But it's like, no, they are here to play. These guys come ready. There's a lot of talent, but he's unlocked their potential and has really maximized the effort in this roster. So Taylor Jenkins for me.
It's a lot of these awards, we're gonna say it's kind of like a given, but it could go multiple different ways. And I think Taylor Jenkins is a good pick. I don't think with any of these picks that you make, if I disagree, I'm gonna be like, you're wrong. I think there's room for a lot of these guys to win. So I think Taylor Jenkins has had an amazing season. I'm gonna go with Monty Williams. The Suns, it's basically been the Suns and everybody else this entire season. At the start, it was Suns, Warriors, Jazz, and you had teams like the Bulls and the Nets that were kind of at the top. The Suns always at the top, but as parity has kind of taken hold this season, where we've seen very few teams win more than like 55 games. I think the Suns with 64 wins have just been head and shoulders above the rest. They've had their injury issues throughout the season, but through their system and through his coaching, I think largely they've been able to keep the ship running to the point where I just think that if Devin Booker is healthy, I don't really see anybody stopping them on their way to the championship outside of maybe Milwaukee. But from what I've seen from Milwaukee this series, like I'm not even really convinced about their chances because they have some holes themselves. But yeah, I just think that, Monty has been a really good coach this year. Who you have for most improved?
I gotta talk about my honorable mentions first. I got Anthony Simons and Jordan Poole as guys who definitely should have been, I think, finalists for the award because of their individual brilliance this season. Anthony Simons going from 7.5 points a game to 17 and averaging 20 for the last 3 months of the regular season, which is insane in terms of a turnaround over 20. And then Jordan Poole, in Curry missing time this season, Clay missing time this season, has really turned his fortunes around, going from a G League player to one of the more important players on this Golden State Warriors team. Again, with true shooting percentage in the 83s in the playoffs, but just having an amazing season overall. But, they aren't the finalists, so I'm choosing based on the top 3 candidates: Darius Garland, DeJounte Murray, and Ja Morant. And for me, I think that I try to stay true to the technical name of this award, most improved. and it has to go to Ja. He set a new bar for himself. When you look at his statistical turnaround from last season to this season, it leaps off the page. You know, going from sub 20-point scorer to a 27-point per game scorer on similar minutes and similar efficiency. He's just taking more shots. His 3-point percentages have improved. His assists has dipped a little bit, but he's just getting more buckets at the end of the day. He went from being a star, a budding star, to a bona fide superstar MVP candidate. And he's definitely not winning MVP this season, and he's missed too many games. But in terms of improvement, the way he's improved has exceeded expectations. So I definitely think he's a most improved player for me.
I gotta disagree on that one. We've had our discussions about most improved, but for me, I'm gonna vote for someone that's not on the finalist ballot. I also have to take Darius Garland and Ja out of the running, because I think if I look at most improved and what it means to me as an award, I have trouble awarding players that follow the trajectory that we expected. I think ultimately Ja is a little bit better than everyone expected, despite being the second pick in the draft. But I think we kind of saw it coming. We knew Ja was going to be an all-star. Darius Garland is very young in his career. He's a third-year player. So him getting better from his second to third season really isn't all that unexpected. DeJounte Murray, I think if I had to choose between the finalists, I think I would pick him, because I think we've seen over the course of his career that he has had kind of an unexpected improvement. I don't know if anyone would have picked DeJounte Murray as an all-star. He's in his sixth season. He missed one because of injury, but I think his improvement this season is kind of unprecedented with, 21, 9, and 8, which is pretty crazy, along with elite defense, 2 steals a game as well. But I think we kind of saw the signs. I think his research I think it's more of a result of opportunity as well, with DeMar going to the Bulls, because DeMar was kind of the de facto point guard for San Antonio a lot last year as kind of a point forward. But with my award, I think I have to give it to Jordan Poole. I think he kind of exemplifies what the award for me is supposed to be. I think your voting kind of aligns with what it has been, and I think that's a fair guideline to go by. But for me, I think most improved. I think I kind of vote for it as like the guy that came out of nowhere award for me, and I think that's Jordan Poole, to go from a G League player to what he is now. The numbers that he's putting up, like you said, 80-something% true shooting percentage, averaging 29, 5, and 3 over the 3 games in the series. He's been one of their best players, probably their second best player, even their best player over the course of this series. He's shooting lights out. He's been incredible. His bag is one of the deepest of all bags in the league. So I think just to go from being a guy that was in the G League, a guy that people had prior to him entering the league from Michigan as a 40th pick type of guy, and how they thought that the Warriors kind of reached for him at the end of round 1. So to go from a guy that was a reach at the end of the first round to being arguably one of the best players on a team with championship like aspirations, I think that's really, really huge for him. So that's my reasoning behind the award. I think it can go either way. I think he probably should have been a finalist. But that's my little spiel about the most improved player award. Let's move into defensive player of the year. Did you have any honorable mentions before we got into what your pick is, or did you want to dive straight into your pick?
I was going to dive straight into my pick, but I think I wanted to talk more about Rudy Gobert. We spoke about him earlier, and I'm fine ultimately with Marcus Smart winning the award. First guard since 95, 96, Gary Payton winning the award, and deservedly so. I think he was, but I have a little bit of a hard time with him because he is individually a great defender, and I think he has a great reputation as a defender. But when you think about this Celtics team, whose defense, whose identity, especially toward the latter half of the season, was defense, anchored by a Robert Williams, so you kind of wonder, like, is he actually even the best defender on his team? I think that's debatable. And then coupled with the fact that, again, they have a defensive identity. And then I look at Rudy Gobert and I look at the Utah Jazz, and I see that they had the 9th rated defense this season. And then you see how they're performing in the playoffs, and obviously they're not playing up to snuff. But they are so bad without Gobert, and Gobert does so much for that team on the defensive end, by necessity, that I kind of like think that although I like Smart getting the award, I think Gobert it's like almost like defense. They have MVP fatigue. It's like
Yeah,
defensive
that's
player
what I
of
was
the
gonna
year
ask you.
fatigue.
Yeah.
Like he's really the defensive player of the year because he single-handedly makes that team a top 10 defensive team. Um, between his rebounding percentage, between his block shots, between his glass cleanup, he allows them to be a 40 plus, almost 50, I think 50. Did they win 50 games this year?
No,
Yeah.
they
But
were pretty disappointing down the stretch. They started really strong, but they kind of ended on a little bit of a whimper this year.
And seeing how Royce O'Neal is really the only guy that can slow down his perimeter player. The rest of that team is so like just lackadaisical. Donovan Mitchell is such a bad defender, as well as a bunch of other perimeter players and guys that I really think that he allows that team to do so much more. But yeah, that's kind of my spiel on it.
This is one of the toughest ones I thought to actually sit down and analyze what I thought about it. That and probably like Rookie of the Year. I think those were the two ones that I went back and forth the most about. I just went with a pick. I feel like Rudy is incredibly valuable, but like morally, it's really hard for me to vote for him as defensive player of the year because of what defense is in the modern NBA. It's just really hard for me with good conscience to vote for someone as valuable as he is as a rim protector, to vote for someone that's getting hunted in the playoffs. Like it's really hard for me to vote for a defensive player of the year that the other team is actively hunting.
I gotta disagree because I don't think that they're hunting him. I think that they're breaking down all the perimeter players, forcing him to guard on the perimeter. And
I don't mean necessarily just this year. I mean overall. I mean overall, when it does come down to it, I think that you can continue after, but I feel like during past playoff series and during certain matchups during the regular season, they're like, all right, let's get Rudy on an island. And it kind of turns into he gets embarrassed a lot on that end. It can be tough to watch in those situations. So I think he's an incredibly valuable defensive player. I just don't know if I can vote for him for defensive player of the year. But go ahead. I know the defensive metrics are outrageous. I know he's great. For me personally, it's kind of like me with the most improved player. Like I have my guidelines that I would fictionally, because I don't have a vote, that I would fictionally vote along if I were given one. But yeah, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, you're good. It's because he does have vulnerabilities as a defender. He's slow-footed, and once he steps outside the paint, his ability to disrupt shots and be a defensive force really gets exposed. But at the same time, that's not his strong suit, and where he's good at, he's elite of the elite. And I think that again, just what he means to that team and his value defensively to that team is what I'm kind of paying attention to. I think some of the other guys, in Michael Bridges as well as Marcus Smart, are really valuable to their teams, but I think that their teams would still be competitive defensively if they're not there. If Rudy Gobert is not on the floor, that Jazz team's getting smoked because they're not stopping anybody from getting into the paint. And once they get to the paint, they're going to get an easy shot and layup. When Gobert was off the floor, their offense played a little bit better and was more efficient. They were actually able to pass to the 5 for once. But at the same time, defensively, they were just getting cooked by the Mavericks. So, that's just my feeling on it.
No, I hear you. I think there's a lot of candidates, and I don't think you'd necessarily go wrong with any of them. I went off the board again, and I went Giannis. I think he's the best two-way player in the league. He's probably the best help defender in the league. I just think what he offers to Milwaukee defensively allows him to do so much. But Mikal Bridges is the best defender on the best team in the league. Marcus Smart is arguably the best defender between him and probably Jason Tatum on the best defensive team since the All-Star break. So it's a lot of different candidates, and I think it's just kind of it's based on personal preference when it comes to defensive player of the year, because you can't point to metrics that are really going to do it justice. So I just think for versatility, in terms of someone who's really good at protecting the rim and someone who can also switch out, I think Giannis is my pick. But I totally see your Gobert reasoning, and I think your theory is definitely getting proved correct in the playoffs this year, because Rudy is carrying a heavy load to no fault of his own because of the Jazz really weak perimeter defense. Sixth man of the year. I don't know if this is really much of a debate here. I'm going to go
Yeah.
ahead and go Tyler Hero, 20.7 points per game. He plays starters minutes at 32 minutes per game, but technically he comes off the bench. So that's kind of what we have to go with. And he's just been a dynamite scorer. He's incredibly efficient for one of the best teams in the league. And that's all I got to say about that. What do you think?
Yeah, he's a walking bucket. He closed the games. He's a 3-level scorer, mostly from the outside, and he can't dance or move his shoulders, but he can shimmy on the court. So
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
yeah.
Rookie of the year. This one was tough. This one was a tough award. I think they got it right with the finalists on this one. I think some of the other finalists were a little, but I think with this one, it was really tough. I went back and forth with my pick. I don't think you can really go wrong with either Scottie Barnes, Evan Mobley, or Cade Cunningham. I think they all had great years. I think it's just depends on what you value. Do you value rim protection? Do you value all around play? Do you value winning? Do you value ball dominance and being the lead creator? Like it's just there's so many different things that you could value. I think I really this is the hardest one for me to go between the guys, but I think I just went with Evan Mobley. I think he had elite two-way impact for a Cavs team that fizzled towards the end, but had a really strong start to the season. He just showed really, really great versatility. He did a lot of different things for that team. I think you can make that argument for all three guys that they did a lot for their individual teams. But if I just had to make my pick, I would go with Evan Mobley.
Yeah, I really can't fault you for that. I really wanted to pick Evan Mobley, but I look at what Scottie Barnes did and how important his role was on the Raptors team, and the fact that he was so integral to their success this season. Their seeding, him kind of willing them to the playoffs and getting a 5th seed as opposed to the play-in in the Evan Mobley situation. That had more to do with Jared Allen going down towards the end of the regular season. But ultimately, Scottie Barnes was a really high impact and highly valuable player for that Raptors team. And you look at him getting drafted and you're like, what? Like, you already have long wings and forwards between Pascal Siakam, again, Anunoby, Boucher, and Thad Young, and just some of the other guys on the team. But he stood out amongst those guys as a floor running, point forward that can do some stuff off the ball, that can get rebounds, take it coast to coast. And he just made winning plays all season. So I think Barnes for me. I think Cunningham probably would have won had he actually played the whole season, but he missed so much time and he struggled so much early on that it kind of really knocked his stock down. And then Jalen Green, he started figuring it out towards the end of the year. And if he can kind of take what he did towards the end of this year and apply it to next season, the Rockets are definitely going to be a 30-win team. So I can't wait to see that.
Not you clowning them like that. Yeah, the Rockets prognosis is not great. We'll have to see who they pick up in the draft. But yeah, I hear you. Scottie Barnes has been awesome. He's a pleasure to watch. He's definitely in the Russell Westbrook mold of all out effort all the time. So it's really, really fun to watch him. This rookie class has been really, really great. You have guys like just even like a Josh Giddey, Chris Duarte, Herb Jones, Ayo Dosunmu, like all of these guys that have really been valuable contributors to their teams. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they grow. Let's get into the big talk. We probably spoiled it with our, dozens of discussions prior to this, but MVP, one of the more hotly contested races in recent memory. I think all three candidates have had seasons that would be worthy of MVPs in many other years. Statistically, they've all been monsters this year. They've all broken all kinds of advanced stat records and have just put up gaudy numbers and been incredibly valuable. But we got to pick one. And it's Jokic for me still. I think Joel's been great, particularly in the playoffs, but it's not a playoff award. But throughout the regular season, he's been amazing. Giannis has been amazing, two-way player. But Jokic, just the fact that team is a 6 seed is incredible in the Western Conference. Like, just outside of him, I think they have pretty good players. Like, I think Will Barton is a solid starter. Aaron Gordon is a solid starter, but they just don't have another all-star on the roster without Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. So the fact that he's been able to hold this team afloat, along with statistically improving over an already historic season last year, which he won MVP in, just some of his stat lines from the season have been incredible. The advanced statistics are off of the chart. His just distinct ability to completely control the game, to be unstoppable, to score from every area of the floor, wherever he decides that he wants to score, has just been, it's been awesome. I was looking at a tally of like basic stats, advanced stats plus, and miscellaneous stats. And they basically calculated like who led in each of these stats. So basic stats like, points, rebounds, assists, advanced stats like effective field goal percentage, true shooting percentage, advanced stats plus like PER, win shares, and miscellaneous stats like plus minus or clutch points per game. So they just rounded up all of these stats, and all of the guys that were in contention like Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, Luka, Devin Booker, and Jason Tatum, who are all considered to be the top candidates. And the tally is 23 for Jokic, 5 for Luka, 4 for Giannis and Booker, 3 for Tatum, and 1 for Embiid. So he just, I know we got lit up in the comments when me in particular, when I was shouting out all the advanced stats and stats aren't everything, and you can't rely on this. But when we're talking about players that are of this caliber, you have to have ways, including the eye test and including what you're seeing on a day-to-day basis, a game-to-game basis, to quantify how great they are. And using these stats, they really show that Jokic has the edge in these categories. And it's one way to quantify greatness. And it's one of the only ways we have outside of the eye test, because all of these guys are putting up great numbers. So just looking at that, it's like, he's the guy. The media may not want him to be the guy. They may not think that he deserves to be the guy, but he's it. Jokic is it. He's my MVP.
Yeah. Jokic did as much as he could. I think that him having a bad playoff series, and his team just not really performing well in the playoffs 2 years in a row, more notably this year, it's not really his fault. He's doing as much as he can. And you look at just individual brilliance. You look at somebody who's just carrying this team, similar to the way that Russ did it in 2017 or 2016. And you have to like kind of commend him. He's doing as much as he possibly can. And when you have such a close race like this, it sucks, but you start nitpicking and looking for holes in everybody's case. And when the stats are so close, you look to the advanced analytics, Jokic wins. You look to the amount of help, Jokic wins by subtraction, because he has no help. Because Joel has a budding star in Tyrese Maxey, who's come alive this season, an elite defender in perimeter defender in Matisse Thybulle, Tobias Harris, who can get you, 20 points in his sleep. And then towards the end of the season, James Harden. So you look at all the help that he has. You look at Giannis having Middleton and Drew Holiday for the majority of the season, and him not needing to play, 35, 37 minutes a game, and being kind of able to coast at an efficient rate for this season. He just didn't have to play at a supremely elite MVP level for his team to win. I add up all of that and I say, yeah, Jokic won. Unfortunately, I think that this might be his last MVP if he wins, because voters are going to get voter fatigue, and I don't think that they're going to give it to him 3 years in a row, especially as he gets more help with Jamal Murray and MPJ coming back next season. But enjoy the greatness. Joel, he got the scoring title, and I love that. I think Joel is amazing. He's had an MVP caliber season, and he's proved a lot of people wrong. But when you look at what Jokic has done, it can't be denied. And it's annoying because you'd like to see that coupled with a nice postseason run, but I just don't think we're going to get that this season.
No, he just doesn't have enough help, and the Warriors are clicking at just the right time, which is how you kind of want it to happen. Not happening for every team, but they're really, really on a good page. But yeah, those are our award picks. We've worked a long season up to get to this point. They've waffled and changed it around a lot. There are a lot of guys that we talked about early in the year that we're not talking about right now for various different reasons. But just let us know what you think about our award picks. Do you agree, disagree? I'm sure you do, especially about the MVP and some other ones. But let us know in the comments what you think about our award picks. Were we wrong, right? Who should we have picked? Who did you pick, etc.? Join the conversation.